If you open up your copy of Virgil's Aeneid, which most modern people have lying around somewhere on the internet, you'll find an interesting phrase. It was the hour when first sleep begins for weary mortals. First sleep? What's Virgil on about? And Virgil isn't the only one. The phrase also appears in Livy's History of Rome. The men would have their fill of wine and be in their first sleep. In Chaucer's Squire's Tale, we see that Canacee slept her first sleep and then awoke. And in William Bulleen's 1559 A New Book of Physic called The Government of Health, he advises that to lie upon the left side is very evil in the first sleep, but tolerable in the second. References to first and second sleep seem to gradually fade in Europe with the onset of industrialization, but in a 1953 study on the Tiv of Nigeria, the anthropologist Paul Bohannon found that the Tiv gave names to several parts of the day and night, two of which were the time of the first sleep and the time of the second sleep. So what's this all about? What exactly is meant by a first and second sleep, and why don't we do it today? Well, the answer may lie with an experiment conducted by Dr. Thomas Ware in the 1990s. Dr. Ware found that when humans were deprived of artificial light at night, as would have been the case in the pre-industrial age, their sleeping patterns became segmented. After a few weeks of being deprived of artificial light, the experiment's subjects would lay awake for 2 hours, sleep for 4, awaken again for 2 to 3 hours, and then fall back to sleep for another 4. This would explain why references to first and second sleep became less common after artificial lights began dotting the streets of Europe in the late 17th century, and also gives us some idea of what the sleeping patterns of pre-industrial societies might have looked like. However, it's not clear that all pre-industrial societies slept this way. Whilst the Tiv certainly exhibited evidence of segmented sleep, as well as the Chaga and Gui, all three of which were groups of farmers in Africa, studies done on 3 widely separated hunter-gatherer societies in Tanzania, Namibia and Bolivia found little evidence of segmented sleep, although they did observe daytime napping, which wasn't allowed for the participants in Dr. Ware's study. Regardless, it seems very likely that a number of pre-industrial societies around the world, including pre-industrial Europeans, routinely slept in 2 phases separated by a period of wakefulness. But what did they do during the time between their first and second sleep? In the 16th century, the physician Andrew Boord advised that, when you do wake of your first sleep, make water if you feel your bladder charged. The diarist Robert Sanderson reported waking up after his first sleep to smoke a pipe after checking on his ill wife, and according to a traditional English ballad called Old Robin of Portingale, when Lord Robin was ill, his wife promised, "At the wakening of your first sleep, you shall have a hot drink made." Indeed, there were a number of medicines that physicians advised taking during this period of waking. Students would use the time after their first sleep to study before returning to bed. Farmers, like the 17th century Henry Best of Elmswell, would go out to ensure against the destruction of their fields by roving cattle. Benjamin Franklin rose to read or write, and some might wait to tend their children and perform chores. Others rose to commit crimes, or, contrarily, spend their time in prayer. Of course, most who woke probably never left their beds, choosing instead to chat with their bedfellows or indulge in sexual intimacy, as it was thought that the period after first sleep was the best time to do so. And they were probably right, because frankly, people were often too tired at the end of the long day, and after their first sleep, as the French physician Laurent Joubert advised, they could do it better. Even more common were people who used this isolated waking period for contemplation. In Dr. Ware's study, he found that those inhabiting this period of waking experienced heightened levels of prolactin, a hormone known for stimulating lactation in nursing mothers and allowing chickens to brood atop eggs for long stretches of time. Ware likened it to an altered state of consciousness like meditation, and those who took part in Ware's experiment also seemed to wake up from their first sleep during REM sleep, the stage of sleep directly connected to dreaming. He found that transitions to wakefulness were most likely to occur from REM periods that were especially intense, accompanied by particularly vivid dreams distinguished by their narrative quality, which many of the subjects contemplated as they lay awake in the darkness. It seems likely that this was also happening in pre-industrial Europe. Historically, people waking from their first sleep were often struck by confused thoughts that wandered at will, as well as pronounced feelings of contentment. It seemed that this was the time, complained the Hammersmith minister John Wade in 1692, that people experienced unsettled, independent thoughts and indulged in vain, unprofitable musing, often as a result of reflection on their dreams. Indeed, in the earlier mentioned Squire's Tale, Canacee woke up from her first sleep to muse on a vision she had had in her dreams, and in an early English story, the Emperor Dolphinus received a prophetic vision in his first sleep. In 1676, the mystic Jane Lead recorded that, "In my first sleep in the night time, many magical workings and ideas were presented to me." Dreams in pre-modern societies were generally believed to be invested with meaning, although there were always skeptics. In his On Divination in Sleep, Aristotle dismissed dreams as simply images based on past experiences and thoughts, and the father of the 16th century Lucretia de Leon, who had experienced many dreams she believed to be prophetic, including the English defeat of the Spanish Armada, told his daughter that dreams are just dreams, and that if she continued to believe in them, he would give the order to have her killed. And yet, ancient Greece was home to popular sleep temples, where many would go in the belief that they would be visited by the god Asclepius, who would tell them what they needed to do to cure their ailments. And Lucretia de Leon was eventually arrested for the scandal and unrest her dreams had caused, suggesting the impact they had on the credulous population of 16th century Spain. Books designed to make it easier to interpret dreams exist as far back as ancient Egypt, when the ancient Egyptian Book of Dreams was compiled in the reign of Ramses II, probably around 1275 BC. Each dream was described and then categorized as auspicious, i.e. good, or inauspicious. Often the ascribed meanings of the dreams can seem contrary to what happens in them. For example, if a man sees himself burying an old man, that is good, as it indicates prosperity. However, sexual dreams were almost always bad. If a man sees himself making love to a woman, it is bad because it predicts mourning. The correlation of sexual dreams being inauspicious is especially strong when it comes to women. Even dreaming of herself sleeping with her husband was a bad omen. Bizarrely, the few sexual dreams for women that are considered auspicious tend to involve animals. If a woman dreams of having relations with an ibis, this is good, as it means she will have a well-equipped house. How many ancient Egyptian women actually experienced such dreams is unknown. Similarly, dreams were often viewed as messages from a god or the future. In the beginning of the Iliad, a dream diviner is employed to discover why Apollo is so angry with Agamemnon. It apparently didn't occur to Agamemnon that stealing the daughter of one of Apollo's priests and refusing to give her back may have had something to do with it, but the dream diviner confirms that that was the reason. Likewise, some dreams were believed to have been prophetic or revelatory. Jesus dreamt of his betrayal, Caligula dreamt that Jupiter kicked him down to Earth, which he took as a premonition of his death, which occurred the next day. More recently, Isaac Frauenthal had a dream of a steamship crashing into something and sinking just before he boarded the Titanic, but he chose to ignore the dream and board anyway. Luckily, he survived. Dmitri Mendeleev claimed to have dreamt the layout of the periodic table, whilst Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was inspired by a dream she had. In the late 18th century, dream interpretation began to be frowned upon by the literate classes, but its popularity had some staying power, and in England, dream books devoted to interpreting different varieties of dreams surged in popularity. But what did people actually dream about? You might expect that people in Christian Europe dreamt often of heaven and hell, and sometimes they did, but not all that often. Samuel Sewall, one of the 9 judges at the Salem witch trials, stated in 1686 that sometimes my dreams are holy and things hang together therein, but my dreams are ordinarily vain, God knows. Many people had unpleasant dreams that reflected common anxieties. People dreamt of catching fire, losing all their teeth, being mauled by rabid animals, being subject to a foreign invasion, etc. There were also more pleasant dreams. Dreams of visits with dead or distant loved ones were common, and in the Americas some slaves dreamt of flying home to West Africa. For many who suffered daily labours, dreams were said to give liberty to the soul, although this obviously wouldn't always be the case, but some certainly saw their dreams as an escape from the toils of their lives. Some particularly aggrieved folks even beat up those who wrong them in their dreams, including their employers. In some societies, it is believed that dreams offer a way to travel to places out of reach of ordinary folk, and sleep deprivation is a method of spiritual revelation and empowerment among some Native American groups, who engage in solitary vision quests by entering trance-like states to travel with their mind, leaving their bodies behind them. In early modern Europe, an Italian group called the Benandanti claimed to enter a battle with evil witches in their dreams, an act which they said was done to protect the community. The Inquisition really just weren't sure what to do with them, so in the end they simply told them to not do that from then on. But what about the modern day? With industrialization, most people's days began to be governed by schedules that were much stricter than anything that had come before, and as a result an entire industry has arisen to help us sleep and wake on cue. 1903 saw the first modern sleeping pill, a synthetic barbiturate called Veronal. This wasn't the first sleeping aid, of course. Amongst others, laudanum, a combination of opium and diluted alcohol, had been used to help people get to sleep in and around the 16th century, but it was to start a much bigger trend. By 1930, the number of barbiturates taken every year hit 1 billion, and in 2013, a report from the Centers for Disease Control stated that 4% of all US adults use prescription sleeping pills. Worldwide, $58 billion was spent on sleeping aids in 2014, which was predicted to almost double to $100 billion by 2023. And yet these pills tend to increase sleep only by 20 minutes, and are laden with side effects from an increased risk of falls to dementia. But many see such pills as necessary to meet the strict timetables of the modern workplace, and worry when they wake up in the middle of the night, which in the light of historical segmented sleep, may simply be our bodies adhering to a natural biphasic sleeping pattern. Perhaps in sleep we have lost something in the modern era, but our losses may well be balanced by some gains. Getting up for a pee in the middle of the night no longer hazards falling down the stairs in the darkness, or, if lighting a candle to lessen the risk of such a fate, a house fire. Generally we feel safer in our beds in the modern era than times past, and that feeling of safety likely improves the quality of our sleep. However, the era of artificial lights has also lengthened our days and resulted in less sleep, although likely great gains for the coffee industry. So, should we bemoan the loss of the segmented sleep and vivid dreams of our ancestors, or should we be thankful that the modern era has elongated our days and made the night safer? Leave a comment below with your thoughts, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe for future content. Or if you want to support the channel further, check out my Patreon in the description below. And if you want to learn more about the history of sleep and dreams, check out the sources which have also been listed in the description. And I'll see you next time.